What you know about Bob Lazar?
What do you know about Bob Lazar?
That he's way smarter than me.
Bob Lazar's way smarter than me, too.
Smarter than a fifth grader. He would dominate that show.
You sent me a video.
I did.
You did. This didn't come from a viewer just like you.
Came from this guy.
Just came from that guy. So you sent me a video where he was talking about being inside an alien craft.
Yes.
And then also the propulsion system.
Yeah, and space travel and how it's possible. And,
Element 115.
And pretty much everything that...
You love Bob Lazar, by the way.
I just think he's smart, and I think...
He's the smartest guy on the planet.
He's like genuine, he's smart, and I think he's telling the truth.
And he's beautiful.
Discount him as like a kook or crazy or a liar, but if you go back and like look at everything that he's ever said, it's true.
Yeah, I was watching this morning, while I was eating my oatmeal. Normally I watch some cartoons, Tales from the Crypt, stuff like that, but I was watching Bob Lazar videos.
Yeah.
It is. He's very consistent. Just what he says, I don't really have an understanding of this side.
No.
I mean, I've been studying aliens for 30-something years? I don't know why you're shaking your head. I've been looking into this for 30 years.
Okay.
Reading articles, reading books, watching Bob Lazar. It fascinates me when he said he was in a craft.
Yeah, S4.
At S4.
Basically Area 51.
He calls it the sport model.
He does. He already saw 9 different alien spacecraft.
Right, and he was only in one, and he said there was 3 tiers, and on the bottom was the propulsion system, Element 115, where it was able to generate it, and he was on that tier. He was in the middle tier where almost there was like a cockpit doorway to get in. The top tier, he said he wasn't in, so he never describes it.
Which is, I mean, he said that in other videos too.
Right.
And he was part of the engineering back team that basically reverse engineers everything to like how it works.
Yeah, it's functional. Yeah, and the way he describes it in the video that you sent me, which we're going to link it in the show notes, but it sounds like the flight of the Navigator.
Yeah, I haven't seen that in a long time, so I don't really know.
I just remember that scaring me. I haven't seen it in a long time. I don't even know if it's the right thing.
didn't scare you in the bike? Like, my phone home.
No, because it was all about like Halloween, Reese's Pieces, stuff like that. No, Flight of the Navigator, this is from what I remember. He goes home, right? Or he's like on his way home at night. Something happens. He gets in this alien craft. And then when he actually finishes his navigation, wherever he goes, I don't remember it all. So this is terrible. Don't quote me. Don't yell at us. Don't put it in the comments.
Put it in the comments.
No, don't put it in the comments.
I want to hear it.
Don't put it in the comments. Because he gets back and everybody else is aged but him. As a little kid watching this, I was like, shit, if aliens took me and this happens and you're 50, dad and mom are like in their 80s at the time and I'm just still like a little kid, that would freak anybody out.
That would freak anybody out. Like,
yeah, I'm gonna look it up. The Flight of the Navigator.
But like the way he talks about it and the way he described it, he said he's seen the craft in action and how it does its propulsion system, how it flies, and basically, the speed of like light can only travel so fast. And how these crafts get from stars to stars and like galaxies to galaxies so fast is they distort gravity. He was also explaining that when it's on or in the Earth's atmosphere, since the Earth has its own gravitational pull, it doesn't really distort gravity that much. It basically almost makes it like invisible, which makes total sense because if you ever Google or YouTube or anything like that,
Google it.
Birds flying out of the sky like hitting something, it makes sense of it's invisible. Why we can't see UFOs or why we can't see crafts at certain times and only we see them other times.
It is true, and it just opens up the door into Bob Lazar and his whole coming out in the 1980s about working at Area 51 and just the whole alien phenomena. Like last week, we talked about the alien interrogation video from Project Blue Book. Aliens have always been talked about in our society, and we're trying to figure it out, and I think we have bits and pieces of it. It's hard to almost say, like, all right, that film is being made and it's, an alien interrogation. It's like, all right, that's bullshit. But then you have, on the other hand, Bob Lazar coming out and saying that he worked on alien technology to back and engineer it for our use, whether it's in...
Back in the 80s.
Right, in the 80s. And are we still doing that today? Are there still people like Bob Lazar? That's the only thing I don't understand, too. And I always questioned it. I know we talked extensively about Bob Lazar before. If there's more people out there like Bob Lazar, how come they haven't come out?
They probably get killed.
Yeah, but then why didn't Bob Lazar get killed? killed.
Because like we talked about, he stole element 115.
So they need it, and they're still trying to find it.
They're still trying to find it. They still want it. They still need it because that's how the whole gravitational,
Yeah, but you don't think they had more of element 115?
I'm sure they do, but he said like the handprint technology, like element 115, like all this technology way back in the day in the 80s. He was like, no, they have that. He's been proven right.
No, I know he's been proven right, but then at this point, since the 80s, 30 years later that he's been around doing this, why haven't they just killed him at this point? Like, all right, we're never going to find it. Just kill him, man. Just kill him.
Because I think now it would be like that John Lang story that we did. It's like too many people are invested in him now that if he goes mysteriously missing or killed, people would ask more questions and dig deeper. And I don't think they want that.
Yeah, but at this point, same thing with John Lang. They killed him. That was it. And it seemed like a bunch of people were, investigating it, but it just gets brushed under the rug. I feel like the same thing could happen to Bob Lazar at this moment.
I mean, I'm sure it can, but it's so interesting and to hear him talk because
he's smart, beautiful.
No, like just what he said, just what he says is like makes total sense of like UFOs. And if you really think about it, how do we have 9 different crafts? Like, is there 9 different like species of aliens that came down that their spacecrafts crashed? So like, how many more are there?
Yeah, I don't get that.
Or are they like the same species but different aircrafts?
I mean, that's more plausible than 9 different species, because every time somebody does like a video or an interpretation of it, or we see some writings, again, like they all look the same to me.
Sure.
The eyes, the head, the mouth, the hands. Like the only difference sometimes with the hands is they have 4 like fingers instead of like the 5. Whatever it may be, it's the same thing.
There's one interesting thing though that he did say is that the seats were so low that an adult human couldn't use them. So it's like you sitting in like one of those like the Playmate yellow chairs,
Yeah, it's possible. Maybe you have to be like a jockey to get into these spacecrafts, and that's what they use. They used like maybe little kids or young adults.
And also, I'm surprised that they haven't like figured out a way to reverse engineer it.
Maybe they have.
I mean, maybe they have now to make it like the U.S. military has it now.
It is plausible. I don't know.
I mean, I do know that they have in the works a cloaked U.S. fighter jet.
I mean, I'm sure we're going to see more of that stuff come out over the decades if we're, still going to be around. But I don't know. So you believe Bob Lazar was actually in an alien craft?
Yes, I do.
So that's a thumbs up. Yeah, the more I watch about Bob Lazar and I try to debunk it, I try to figure it out, I think it's true. I think he was in an alien craft. Let us know your thoughts on Bob Lazar. And if you have any other strange videos, UFO sightings, Bigfoot, ghost, send it on over, because we're always looking for the next weekday weird. And until next time,
stay spooky.
Why are you always looking over there? What? I thought the video was on.
I thought it was too at one point.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a ghost.